So welcome everybody to the second of many in our Mesh Systems webinar series. Today, we're going to focus on launching is just the start, but ensuring your success after your connected product is deployed is an important step. We spent a lot of time in our first series around kind of that early phase of launching and what that looks like from a business model standpoint, but also the technology behind it to support it. And today is going to be focused on sort of that next phase and how do we look forward. So looking forward to today. I wouldn't be doing my job if we didn't have a little housekeeping and agenda to kick things off. So we'll do some welcome introductions. I'll read the bios that these guys used ChatGPT to build with a little bit of fun twist of my own. We'll cover a little more on the what is IoT solution management, what it means for Mesh, but really what it means in the industry and how that's evolving. We'll also talk about how you can succeed in ISM and also fail. One of the parts we put a lot of emphasis on is the sort of a live Q&A. So I just play an engineer on TV. I don't even play one in real life. And so, but turning to two thought leaders, both Kyle and Jason in this space to make sure we get their opinions and perspectives. We will use the live or the Q&A in Zoom function. So please use that throughout if there's things that are hot topics. My job is to help facilitate and make sure we get the right stuff. We'll also go through key takeaways. If you're going to spend an hour or 45 minutes with us here, we want to make sure that if you're doing this at work, hopefully, you get to take something back to the team and something that you learned. We feel like we've got a lot of really great content to make that happen. And then shameless plug, we've got a lot of good up and coming content that Mesh is focused on with other thought leaders, just like Jason and Kyle. So yeah, appreciate you guys joining and excited to get things rolling. All right, so like I said, I promised I would read some ChatGPT bios, but two gentlemen that I both respect in the industry and just as people, both Jason Slater and Kyle Zaranek. I'll start with Jason. So Jason is the Vice President of SmartLink Solutions for Gojo. He brings over 20 years of expertise in software development with a big focus on agile methodology and cloud-based solutions. He's not only just a leader in the Internet of Things, but also a leader at Gojo and in his community in the Akron area. So he's really focused on health hygiene best practices, and really, Gojo's goal and what they do with SmartLink is to make sure that the health and hygiene practices enhance operational efficiencies across not only that hospital, but also from a regulation and compliance standpoint. Not only a noted speaker, which is what ChatGPT told me, he's also a dad, a brewery owner, and I don't know, Jason, I'd probably say like an okay golfer, probably better than me. So, but yeah, thanks,
on
Jason.
the day.
Depends on the day, exactly, which is why we do it. So, and then Kyle Zaranek is a Mesh mate. Officially, Jason is an honorary one, but Kyle is our VP of engineering here at Mesh Systems. He's been at Mesh for over 7 years, long time spent in enterprise systems, not only just like the technology and things side, but also the cloud and architecture. He's got an emphasis on innovation, agile methodology, and in the emerging IoT space. We've been proud to obviously have Kyle here at Mesh and all the impact he makes, not only just on our internal teams, but also those that aren't here, those that are our external partners. Kyle also is a pilot. He's a dad of, I believe, 5, right? And then if you don't know, he's also loves go-karting. And so he may even share his driving code name with you guys, depending on how friendly we get here a little later in the day. So thank you, Kyle and Jason. We very much appreciate you guys being here today.
Happy to be here.
Yep. Awesome. All right, perfect. Well, I'm going to kick things off. We wouldn't be doing our job if we talked a little bit about who Mesh Systems is just in the space. For those of you that don't know, we've been in IoT for the past 20 years. Our 3 co-founders, who are still really actively involved in the business, decided to say, hey, what if we put software-based intelligence and connectivity into everyday objects? And when the definition of Internet of Things came out, that matched pretty closely to what we were already doing, obviously pre-cloud, pre-iPhone, and things like that. Our big focus, and we talked about this on the webinar last time, but driving business outcomes, through technology. And that's been a focus for us and continues to be as we help our customers scale. We have been kind of built on the backs of hyperscalers from both a cloud and device standpoint. It's easy to go at it alone, but we really feel like that it takes a village mentality is what's not only just made us successful, but trickled out to our customers. We've got amazing, expertise and not only just, here in the US, but really globally connected products from companies that are led US and internationally, but also products that are deployed there. We wouldn't be a company in the Internet of Things in this kind of early stage, really cutting edge technology if we weren't investing not only just in the platform, but our people and the services that we just deliver on. And then, we always smile a little bit, but we do have a Meshmate culture. We call ourselves Meshmates, and a lot of it is the collaboration and winning style. We've been kind of lucky to get a few awards for that over the time, but that's mainly just because we've got great people and our leadership team that really trickles down that effective openness and it drives out to the partners. And we feel like we pick good clients to work with as well. So, when we look at what we've done over the past 20 years, we try to develop things into, this brand architecture solution suite that oftentimes comes with that mesh launch phase or part of our business where you have to get started somewhere, whether you've been doing it for a long time, like Gojo when they came to us, or some of the companies that we really start with in that early sort of POC kind of prototype phase, but helping them on business modeling, thinking through what the technology stack is and what works. Mesh Edge is what comes into play next. Internet of Things starts with things is sort of the way that we talk about it, but we wouldn't be a IoT company if we weren't focused on the technology. So that's everything from hardware design, firmware, the right software suites, chips, all the stuff that goes into that edge and that thing side of the business is a big part of what drives us. We can't call ourselves end to end if we don't start there. Oftentimes, we kind of transition to this mesh cloud suite where it is around a lot of proprietary technology that we've brought, but also an application enablement platform that we help, but also looking at how does the cloud kind of make the magic happen? How do we pull the right data? How do we make that data actually work for our customers and then spin it out in some beautiful applications and dashboards that allow them to make that action, usable in their domain? But we're experts in our customers' domain and we try to get better, but we also put an emphasis on how's the plumbing happen, right, Kyle? To pull it all together. And then, Mesh Manage is really where, Kyle, where we're going to spend our time today, actually, of just, yeah, it's good to get something off the ground, but how do you think about that as something scales? And that goes into our Mesh Manage, solution suite, which includes IoT solution management, which is what we're going to talk about a lot today, and a few other business models that kind of make that happen. But IoT devices, just like kids and life, are living and breathing organisms, and we feel like we need to absolutely care for them, for our customers, for ourselves, and for those who are in the space. So shameless plug for a little bit of Mesh. I often talk, though, I was told early in my career that if you have a company spokesperson, you have to absolutely use them. And so we have been, really fortunate so we talk about IoT as a business revolution, not just a technology revolution. And the famous Ron Burgundy was quoted with saying, IoT is a business revolution, not just a technology revolution, but managing at scale is where the magic happens. And so, this was, I think, from one of the maybe IoT Solution World Congress or one of the events that we hosted here locally where Ron was able to take part. He was fortunate to be on the roast of Tom Brady. So it's good to see him out and about in the community, and we're proud to have him here. So now, that was the housekeeping. Who's Mesh? Who are these great panelists? I often say, like, on to the real show. And I'm gonna actually kick it over to Kyle to kind of take us through these first few to get us driving. So Kyle, over to you, buddy.
You bet. Thanks, Dan. And you know what? I'm always amazed at Ron Burgundy's always on point. He's never let us down. So he's got this infinite wisdom, it seems. So anyway, welcome everyone. We really appreciate you joining today's webinar on IoT solution management and what you need to do to ensure success after your connected product is launched. So I thought we'd start with defining IoT solution management. So IoT solution management, or ISM, encompasses the ongoing, sustaining, proactive, and value motions required to maintain and enhance the value of a connected product over its lifetime. Wow. There are some key words in here. You could really just boil it down. You need to maintain and enhance your product over its expected lifetime. But we wanted to really kind of shape this up a little bit more. So let's first double click on sustaining. Sustaining, you're going to find that when you have this connected product in production, you're going to have to respond to inevitable events or things that are just out of your control, but they're going to happen. We'll give some examples of that. Proactive, this is really knowledge via automation. That seems really probably a little bit abstract, but I'll color that in here in a moment. Or simply what you would think, preparing in advance. And then finally, value. This is the intentional increase of value through adding features, or it could be you're looking for efficiencies, you're trying to drive out cost, et cetera. So these three words that are really important when we think about the motions that are involved. And we also were intentional about the word motions. We're including, but not limited to, technology concerns. So today we'll mostly be in the technology domain, but I'm really interested, Jason, to unpack with you. I think there's also some just business processes, et cetera, that definitely are impacted as a connected product scales, as it makes its way through production. All right. So you know what? It doesn't rain every day, but we all at least own one umbrella, right? I've got mine with me here. So the idea here is, our metaphor for IoT solution management is that it's going to protect those components of your solution from the elements that are going to come against it to degrade that value over time. So what are those components? The ones we'll really kind of talk about today are hardware, firmware, cloud, and applications. So if you think about that, I really just want to highlight maybe three key things that can really be a challenge as your product makes its way through its production lifecycle. The first one's just scale. What's unique about scale? It's not just about a large number out in the future. You really have this idea that as your devices scale, you need to think about everything that it takes to make a device real. Manufacturing, end-of-line testing, provisioning, commissioning, OTA. We've seen all those things at different times need to be addressed as devices scale. So, unlike our trusty iPhones, this is just a little bit of a different animal when you think about device scale. The second element is simply time. Again, going back to the iPhone analogy, I was reading a stat. We really roll these over every 2 or 3 years, but an IoT connected product really should kind of match the lifetime of what it's connecting. Let's take a few examples. Let's take them from the home. Connected doorbell, connected thermostat, connected breaker. I don't know about you, but I'm not in the habit of changing my breakers every few years. I expect if I have a connected breaker, that thing's going to last quite a long time. And it's not uncommon that we'll hear kind of this lifespan or expected life cycle of a connected product. 15 years, I think, is what we commonly hear. So you just have to think about, what does that mean to your product as you make your way through this journey? And lastly, just change. And that's kind of a function of time. Invariably, you are going to come up against change. And we'll talk about some examples of that. So it's just, I think the thing we want to leave you with here is IoT solution management is about the sustainment and enhancing of the value of the product through your production lifecycle. It's all the components of your solution. And while scale, time, and change, they kind of impact different solutions in different ways, we would definitely encourage you to keep these in the front of your mind as you think about this journey through this life cycle, especially the production life cycle. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little bit a different view here. We're gonna uncover some use cases, if you will, for IoT solution management. But before we do that, Mesh Systems is constantly thinking about the journey of how do you ideate to getting a connected product to production. And I'm going to be Captain Obvious for a moment. These phases are interdependent, right? They're connected. And I think what we want to highlight here is, in our March webinar, Biz Case for Connected Products, we really stressed you want to focus on discovering what are the validated outcomes that you want your connected product to deliver and the value that you want it to deliver. And, as much as we want to get started and help, I think, as hard as this is to say, we really see that if this step is skipped, you're going to be, you're really going to be remiss that you didn't think deeply about that. So this testing and prototype phase is really important to us. And I encourage everyone, if you didn't catch that March webinar, you can go look that up. There's great content where we just focused really on this testable prototype. So really do spend some quality time there. Next, you're going to have those outcomes identified, and you're going to start to head towards commercial scale. There's certainly going to be refinement as you add devices, start to get deployments in the field, and that's all important to this journey. And again, what you're learning along the way, we can definitely tell you that ISM and what you have to do in production, you can do things in these early cycles that are going to dramatically make that easier. And that's probably a webinar in and of itself. But for today, I really want to focus on this point of launch and then going through the production life cycle. So if you think about this, what we're gonna do is say, you've done a great job. You've got your product in the market. Now what? What are some of the things that you can expect to have to do? So first is just this kind of continual proactive fleet ISM, this IoT Solution Management 101. And if you recall, I said, hey, part of that proactive phase is this knowledge through automation. These are things like, is my cloud infrastructure running in a healthy manner? Are my devices behaving as I expect? Are they connected? Are they, using the right amount of backhaul? You really need to stay on top of this. And what I think we would tell you is this needs to be automated. This is not people powered. This is appropriating technology to proactively have insight to how your fleet's running. And that's just kind of table stakes. That's there throughout the life cycle of your connected product. Now let's go through some examples of some use cases that you can expect in the ISM space. So you've launched your product, maybe some early feedback comes in and you need to add a feature to the product. We see this commonly. And in fact, I can't think of a product a connected product that we help maintain and manage that this hasn't happened. So you're definitely going to have that opportunity to do this value ISM and add additional value through feature enhancement to your product. That could be a mobile app, could be a web app, could be firmware, whatever it is, you can bet that that's going to happen at some point along the life cycle. Next opportunity, as an example, you're doing great. Maybe you're going into year 5 and you're projecting that your device count is going to double and your user count's going to be proportional. Well, one of the things we would say is be proactive, have an IoT solution management motion that assures your cloud is ready for that scale. You can hope and you can find out the hard way, or you can be proactive and there's a lot of opportunity here. We have some tooling to help with scale assurity, both on just the ingestion and kind of the application side. So really important example here where you can be proactive as your solution scales. Third use case, it's a fact of life. It's a rigid rod of reality, defect repair and technology deprecation. We've seen a lot of this, in fact, on the technology deprecation side, as hyperscalers are really learning what services they need to put in front of us as practitioners. We just have to be ready for that announcement of X or Y services going away. Or, again, your users report a defect, you decide that it's significant enough, impactful enough that needs to be repaired. This is going to happen as you have that product in production. So this would be an example of sustaining ISM. You really have no choice. That service is going to be deprecated. That critical bug is going to be found. If you're going to maintain the value proposition of your connected product, you're going to have to take care of this. And finally, our last example is kind of this hardware component end of life. You can be doing all the right steps here. Let's say you're in year 7 and every year you've been seeing if your product is continuing to be able to be manufactured. You're doing those right motions. The supply chain has everything you need, but at some point, and we've seen this is going to turn into a sustaining motion. You're going to be forced to probably look at, hey, I need to have a version 2 of my hardware. And again, this really is maybe a function of time. Got a great example where we've done a lighting application. I think we're in our 14th year, and guess what? We just could not get the same parts and components to make that solution in its V1 form, and we had to go through this. So hopefully this gives you some good examples of use cases of what IoT solution management looks like, what some of these value motions are, sustaining motions are, and proactive motions are. All right, let's transition a little bit. I call this an IoT Godfather Reflects. And we basically did this webinar internally. We have a Mesh Systems IoT Illuminate series, and one of our founders and our CEO, Richard Baxter, shared this with the team. And I find this so refreshing. One is just the authenticity of it and the reflection of, hey, IoT is hard and there's a lot of sprawl and a lot of complexity to this. And so we have some sayings around mesh, things like hardware is hard. The Internet of Things starts with things. And now I can officially say IoT is hard. The Godfather has spoken. So, Richard, we appreciate your authenticity, and this just really impacted me. So, one thing that left me with, though, is why? Why is it have this complexity and this sprawl? So let's see if we can dig into that a little bit. So we affectionately call this the IoT octopus. And look, I don't expect anyone to try to lean in and figure out what's going on in this mind map. I really just want to tell you the story of how this came about. So this is here for you to feel it kind of viscerally, right? The weight, the breadth of this, what's going on. But the story behind this is about 2 years ago, our senior leadership team locked ourselves in a room for a 90-minute kind of mind map exercise. And we said, you know what, we're going to inventory everything we know about the IoT connected product journey. And there's about 170 plus years of human experience in connected product in that room. And we're just jamming away at this mind map. And at the end, smoke's rolling out of the room. We step back, and even we were like, okay, we get it. This is a great visual of why this is hard. You could really feel why IoT takes a village, why it requires a great partner ecosystem. So what I can tell you is it kind of started a journey for us. We put on paper the problem. This is really the definition of the problem for us, why this connected product journey can be challenging, why managing the solution can be difficult. And we've since distilled that into what we feel is a solution, at least to get at this. So if you think about that wild mind map, this is the digestible version of that. So what we've tried to do here again is think about all those components that come together for your connected product: hardware, firmware, cloud, application. We've added support here. And then we've used those bands of sustaining ISM, proactive ISM, value ISM, and we just try to put in the matrix some very common things that we see, themes that we see over and over that you can expect in your connected product production journey. So I'm not going to go through this as a takeaway for you, but this really is the distillation of a lot of thought on our part. I can tell you we think deeply about this, and we will continue to think deeply about it and really try to bring value to our community, because this is a really important topic. I'd also say this list isn't exhaustive. So again, really more thematic and some commonalities that we see in the ISM. All right. So we've talked about what ISM is. We've looked at some use cases. We've heard IoT is hard. We've kind of unpacked why that is so and distilled this down into some options for these common ISM motions. So what options do you have to scale when you think about your connected product journey, especially through its production lifecycle? And there's a link on this slide. Core put this article out. I encourage everyone to read it later. It's about a 5-minute read. But what struck me in the article is that early projections that IoT projects have fallen flat, and nearly 3/4 of the IoT solutions deployed were deemed unsuccessful. That's a startling statistic. I mean, it really hit me as far as we haven't had the runaway success I think we've all hoped for. But how can you kind of de-risk this? How can you increase your opportunity for success with your connected product plans? So there's some options again here. You can do nothing. And when we say do nothing, there's a little nuance here. We've heard of folks saying, hey, I'm gonna design that hardware, firmware. I'm not going to worry about OTA or anything. I'm going to put it in the field and we're just going to let it roll. We would tell you that's probably not a realistic approach, but that is a choice you have. And I guess I could see some early POCs or something of that nature where that might work. But for production and something that's going to have a long lifespan, this is probably not a good strategy. You could do it yourself. You could assemble all of that knowledge needed to take care of all those different areas of concern that we've shown, and you could do that. I think the question you have to ask is, are you wanting to be an IoT connected product company, or are you wanting to be a company that offers product in your domain? That's just a question that I think companies wrestle with, and again, for you to consider, but it's certainly an option. You can patch together a solution from a variety of vendors, platforms, etc. It's kind of a variation of two, but now you're trying to take some tools off the shelf and put that together. Another option, acquire the skill set, right? And I think another thing that the core article highlighted was there is a challenge in just the knowledge base of people who know how to build and operate these solutions. So maybe acquiring a company with IoT skills makes sense, or purchasing a fully developed IoT solution. We've seen those in the market. We've seen them go away. So we would tell you, consider that carefully. But again, valid option. The fifth one is to work with system integrators. These would be folks that, they're really maybe good at mobile apps or hardware, or web apps, distinct pockets. If you go this route, you're probably going to be working with multiple system integrators. That's fine. They'll be really good at their area of expertise, but they may lack the breadth of the end-to-end experience of the IoT. And finally, you can engage with a partner as a solution management offering. Dan, you mentioned it, Mesh Manage. Again, we think deeply about this, and we're really just trying to bring value to the market with our 19 years of experience and all the learnings that we've gathered along the way. All right, so launching is just the start. And Jason, I want to thank you. You really gave us the title for this webinar. Jason, I'm really excited to get into the Q&A with you, kind of unpack this deeper. Hopefully we've done a good job of setting up what is IoT solution management, what are some of those use cases in the sustaining, proactive, and value bands, and then just really double click into, hey, this is challenging for a variety of reasons, and options that you have to ensure and kind of enhance your chance for success. So Dan, with that, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Kyle. A lot of awesome, amazing content. I tried to summarize it in a slide, but part of today's couple asked when we brought Jason in, we said, Jason, you don't prepare much content, but you do have to be ready for some Q&A. So we've had quite a few questions flowing in as Kyle's been presenting. Kyle, if you can actually just come off screen share so we can, I think, all populate as talking heads here. But I'll just kind of go through some of the Q&A. Kyle, Jason, we'll play a little bit of a back and forth, and Kyle, you can even come off a screen share completely.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool, guys. Yeah, and so just kind of call to the audience. We've got quite a few that are already in here, but please submit. I can get all the Q&A and make sure we get them to the right people. But Jason, like I said, I direct a few towards you, and you'll be the star of the show here for the next little bit. So Jason, for Gojo and Purell and the business you guys run, can you share how a company that's 75 years old like Gojo views and manages innovation in the space, whether on the technology or just how do you guys think about that within the culture and the walls there in Akron and even globally?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think quite frankly, innovation is really, I think it's at the core of who we are. It's how how the whole organization was founded back in 1946. The first piece of innovation was trying to find a hand cleaner that would remove carbon black from the folks' hands that worked in the rubber factories. That our founders at the time saw a problem that needed to be solved and worked with a local university to come up with creative solutions, and that DNA has continued forward. I've been blessed now in my over 10 years with Gojo. I've been involved specifically with SmartLink, with this technology, the IoT portion of innovation. But whether it's through our chemistry, through our formulations, we live innovation every day.
Yeah. It was interesting. We do these lunch and learns as a company, and someone on your team had come and present just sort of the history, and it's just kind of unique to see. Yeah, to your point, just even the founding story and how things got started. One of the things you talked about was just SmartLink, and obviously it's in your title and in your role. But can you kind of just give a little bit of an overview of just what that's one of the questions of just, hey, what is SmartLink? How has it become a strategic priority, and maybe a little bit background on the technology that pulls it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. So SmartLink is our Internet of Things solution that we have that really was born first and foremost out of trying to help attack the problem that is hospital-acquired infections in acute care hospitals. That's really where it started. So hand hygiene compliance and hand hygiene monitoring. And we've really, I mean, we've had a commercial product for more than 10 years. We've been at this problem for probably at this point closer to 15 or more in different forms and fashions. So that a lot of the life cycle stuff Kyle was referring to, I've gotten to live in very real ways, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But yeah, as we've continued to innovate, since I've been here, we're now in our fourth generation of a connected dispenser, and it's there's so much that can be done with it. We're now even branching outside of those healthcare use cases into one of the big things that happened as a result of the pandemic is there are a lot of labor pressures, and keeping these dispensers, especially in high traffic areas, full. So this being able to monitor remotely and what we call service alerts. So it's like it does those values, those add-on features, they come over time, whether you necessarily were intending those from the get-go or not. So it's building, really building and thinking about how can I make sure that I can sustain what I have while ensuring that I can build what the next customer is going to want that I didn't see coming.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know how that stuff. Go ahead, Kyle.
Dan, I was going to ask Jason. So you said 4 generations. So Jason, did you deal with this things going end of life, or was it purposeful, like bringing a new generation online? Can you double click into that a little more? What was that? What
Yeah. For us, so what I was referring to specifically, Kyle, is we've now had our last 4 touch-free dispensers have been capable of being internet connected.
Okay.
One of those has been from a SmartLink perspective has definitely been sunset. We're actually getting close to sunsetting a second. And obviously we just had this major launch of our new ES10 dispensing platform just the end of last year, and so that's obviously kind of the go-to and what we've been building and working towards. So yeah, it's watching those and working with customers to we're not only having to upgrade the modules that sit inside the dispensers, but the dispensers themselves, and so there's multiple layers of these life cycles, both from a core product and the electronic product that we're always having to manage through.
Okay. So just one more follow-on question for me. So as you had to manage that, that's not necessarily technical. There was just logistics and how do you get all that in the market? And it's somewhat why I said these are motions. I think there are other things that are outside of technology that you may not anticipate when you launch a product. And I think you just described it perfectly there. Like, how do you make that all come together? Which not necessarily a technology problem, but it's a process problem.
Yeah, it's a process problem for sure.
Process, business. There's a lot that goes into those decisions on what do you do with what you have. Jason, you guys you've talked a little about the generations and the time you guys have been in this IoT space.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, though, there's learnings from sort of those like early phases or those, kind of that ideation phase. So what have you guys learned from some of the early, releasing new products or new generations? What's sort of been the kind of early learnings in that ideation and even developing stage of a connected product? I know it's a big question, but even just
yeah, there's a lot there. I could poke at a couple of things anyway. I know one of the big things that I think I've learned through the process, because initially when I joined the Gojo on the SmartLink team, I had responsibility, the solution architect for the software aspects and the integration and of the hardware with our outstanding engineering team as we were building all these things. And there are a few things that early on we timelines and timing pressures and cost pressures and all of these complexities come at you. And early on, some of the things that we chose to sideline at the time with over-the-air updates, for example. As you get to scale, I cannot stress the value of over-the-air updates, and it's definitely something that when you find yourself in those moments about having to make a choice of what are you going to pull back on? What is it? In some cases, people pull back on security. Sometimes people pull back on some of these other nice to have features that are more focused into your business and how you're going to operate. And you're like, well, it'll be fine. We'll do it the hard way. Well, just realize how hard the hard way can become as you go from, 1,000 to 10,000 and so on with the number of devices. It just gets much more complex than I think you can anticipate. And so do yourself the favor of a lot of the instrumentation and analytics, Kyle, you were referring to through some of those motions, super critical.
Yeah. Hey, I'm so glad you said that, because when one of the options is do nothing, we'd recommend not doing that. But I think for us, table stakes is OTA is table stakes, because like you said, it happens quick, and even at a low volume of devices, it can really be disruptive if you don't have it there. So that's very interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's good perspective. I know, Jason, we could probably spend a whole hour on that. It was a softball, but I told you I'd warm you up before we before on one of the questions that came in just from the Q&A, Kyle, was just as you're looking at continuous proactive fleet ISM or IoT solution management, how do you see that best accomplished?
Sure. I mentioned it that we definitely don't see that as a place where you apply bodies, right? It's not like this knock where you're like, I've got a new solution and I need bodies to watch some monitor, watch for anomalies. I think this is really where you have to appropriate technology well. We talk a lot about observability, and Jason just mentioned it. What do you put in the solution that really has nothing to do with the use case, but knowing, is the device connected or powered off? Is it, utilizing the right amount of bandwidth? And there's so many, what I call use case agnostic pieces of telemetry that enable you to do ISM well, that especially that fleet level, and then can allow you to automate it. So imagine you just get pushed to you, hey, here's how many devices that are not behaving normative, instead of having to go investigate that. And then you have good tooling when you do need to investigate it to get to root cause quickly. So observability, Jason, I think that's something that often people leave out. Like they don't realize how important that is to understand what's going on in the fleet. So yeah, Dan, I think that's a big deal. And I would just wrap up in saying, we found that modeling is really important. As we take care of a lot of different devices, we use the same model to convey device health, right, across the fleet. Well, what does that do for us? We're really starting to poke into things like generative AI. So now that the data is normalized by definition, you can start to apply generative AI to even help you be kind of an expert in the box with you on fleet ISM. So a lot of exciting opportunities, I think, there. And because we showed it as this thing that it just is ongoing, it's not something that's episodic. It's something that you just have to stay at. So yeah, the key takeaway there is think about how you can apply technology, and in that early phase, what can the device send that is going to help you manage that device and that fleet as they grow. Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah, thanks, Kyle. One of the questions, Jason, that came in for you was just as SmartLink has developed, or as your products developed, how do you continue to analyze just the business benefit or the outcomes that you need to be driving? Has the North Star always been, has the North Star always been the same, or have you had to kind of pivot what you're trying to accomplish with your systems and with the technology?
So I would say the North Star definitely shifts over time. If I think back, really, one of the other things that was really unique and challenging about when SmartLink got started, we really helped build a market for a software solution that at the time didn't exist. So not only were we creating new IoT solutions, which was somewhat new to the industry, new to us at the time, but we're also trying to help the market understand why this can be valuable, how this can be helpful. And so as you're learning along with your customers what their real need states are, what jobs they really have that need to be done, your North Star kind of has to move a little bit, right? And that's where making sure as you're going through these things, you're open-minded, you're flexible. Especially early on, we had a lot of direct end customer feedback that helped guide what we thought was right versus what was actually useful to them in the moment. And so, yeah, I don't get too tied in, if you will, to your idea out of the gate, because no matter how much time you've put around it or how much time you spent testing in a lab, when it gets into the real world, you learn all sorts of things that you could never simulate.
Yeah, that's fair.
The chaos monkey's alive and well, isn't he, Jason?
It is. But a lot of great learning comes from that, though, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You've got to be open to the, the pivots or the things that, as these things continue to grow, the outcomes you need. Kyle, one of the questions that came in was just, as you consider all the activities around the device, as your device count grows, like, are there any things that people take for granted? I know Jason talked a little bit about OTA. Jason, I know we've talked about that, of just not building that in early. I think as a company and as an industry, we kind of feel like that's table stakes. But is there anything on the device or the cloud side that customers or partners or adopters need to be thinking about? I know it's another kind of broad level one, but especially
Yeah.
maybe on the cloud side too, I even think about.
Yeah. I had a great conversation with our chief architect, TJ Butler, around this. And we just were like, we consume this device. We buy it and turn it on and we're off to the races. IoT device, you have to think about, who's your contract manufacturer? Are they ready to scale as your volume increases? There are processes in the manufacturing line that you may have to provide end of line tooling or fixtures for. Like, just thinking about, how do you do that efficiently? How does your software get loaded? How does the security artifacts get loaded on your device? Because guess what, Dan, you're responsible for it if you were putting that, if you're manufacturing or that's your device. So that's one. Provisioning and commissioning, right? Do you have maybe a companion mobile app to help with that? So there's all these things that make a device, from a piece of silicon to actually your connected device. All of those things need to be considered as you scale, and OTA is part of that. But yeah, I think it's deceptively complicated, right? You just don't think about it because we're often not responsible for all those chains of events. So that's a lot of it. On the cloud side, I think I've already mentioned, we see, again, observability of all of your cloud assets need to be wired up from day one. It's easy to get behind the 8 ball. So that's what I would say in the cloud. But yeah, just a lot of little details to consider.
Yeah, makes sense. Like I said, that could be a whole nother hour in itself.
Yeah.
Jason, one of the things you talked about is you guys, early on as a company and then also with technology have developed quite an innovation mindset internally, but you've also leveraged outside partners along the way to kind of get there. What can you kind of talk to us on the importance of establishing maybe the right team internally, and then also the willingness for collaboration? That's been a big part of the Gojo motion, it seems like, which some companies try, do it all ourselves or get the right mix. Maybe just share a little bit on how that's formed. And I know that that's ebbed and flowed, but how has that really come together?
I think I look at that the broader lens of innovation and kind of how we as an organization more broadly get there.
Yep.
It has always been it has always been through collaboration. We are always smarter than I, right? And so for a long time, we even there are terms like Gojo without walls. Our business itself is as successful as it is today because of all of the wonderful distribution networks and things like that. So we're just working as a partner, working with partners is kind of, I think, core to who we are too. And you can, as you get into these kind of solutions, so if I kind of dip back to the IoT piece of this, when you get into these kind of solutions, you can certainly become an expert. It's one of the options on Kyle's list, right? You can do all that work, and we did that for a while, and we got to the point as we started to see this real inflection point of scale where it's like we could continue to do this, or we could shift and get really focused at doing with the data and our clinical services and all these wraparound things that make us truly unique, and find partners that can fill that gap, and really do it in a way where we're getting the best of what they are, who they are, how they work, and allowing us to be better at the things that make us uniquely different. And so that was really what many of the collaborations from SmartLink over the years have kind of been driven through.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we talk a lot about, the complement of, we don't always own or know the domain we don't know Curel and Juice and all this stuff, but we learn enough of it, but we've been able to kind of know our own domain and kind of stick in our lane and really support the business. One of the questions, and Kyle, I know we've run into this a little bit, just as, devices, and in the beginning, usually when you launch a product, right, it's pull every data point, get all of it, all 400, and pull these beefy data things because you get the data. But one of the questions that came in is just, how do you evaluate the effort put into the data pull and like Wi-Fi, cellular costs, data transfer costs, like the consideration that goes into that? I know it's kind of a big one, but and guys, thanks for using the guys and gals, thanks for using the Q&A. It's at the bottom of your Zoom link. So but yeah, Kyle, just to, sorry, go back. How do you assess that, and how do you help walk customers from the pull everything or pull what matters? Like, what's that nuance look like?
So I'm going to split it into two. There's again, these like use case agnostic things that you need to have bubbling up. They don't have to be terribly frequent, but they're your footholds to know how the device health is going. And some of those things are going to help you manage the fleet from just hey, is it connected and doing what it's supposed to do?
Yep.
The second thing I think goes back to this connected product journey where in the March webinar, we said, really try to understand what outcomes you're trying to drive and value you're trying to drive, because that should lead you to the discernment of what data does the device need to send and what interaction do I need to have with the device to enable that outcome.
Okay.
And if you do that and you get that well-defined, then you know what? You leave everything else out that is not missional. So I think that's one way to think about it. And I had a follow-up question for you, Jason, because I'm always fascinated. At some point along the way, you said we decided to really focus on our expertise around the data and partner for the IoT part. Was that a difficult decision, or was that something that just seemed apparent when you went through it? Because I think that's always critical. Like, who are we going to be, and is the IoT part of it like missional? And getting that right is a challenge.
Yeah, so it wasn't easy, and it took time. Like we've been at this for 10 years. And and we've always had partners along the way, but it is definitely in the last 2-3 years where we've made this very conscious decision of saying, push aside and push the expertise to the right people to do these things that are, really a lot of those long-term management motions that you were talking about. Someone who's really expert at that, because although we could do it, we've got brilliant engineers at Gojo. It's not our core business, but the hand hygiene piece and really the layering on top of the data with it, like with those clinical services, that's really what makes us unique. So let's take that set of resources that we have and really get dialed in there, and then find the right partner to make sure that we're just, all that other stuff is their sweet spot, find that nice balance and kind of move forward. It took 7 years of me, the time I was here, before we kind of started to really see that shift is what's going to help us get to scale and hopefully hyperscale.
Yeah, makes sense. Kyle, you're still in my job, but you're doing a great
Sorry.
job. Yeah, no, yeah. And guys, just a friendly reminder, Q&As, I think at the top or bottom of your bar, keep dropping them in. These are awesome questions. One of the questions, and I don't know if this would be better for Kyle or Jason, or maybe you both take a crack, but, as you're scaling to hundreds or even thousands of buildings, data normalization can play a big part of the IoT process and can oftentimes cause issues or difficulties just ingesting that data. And then, how can data normalization maybe be made into like a simpler process? I don't know, Kyle, maybe if you start, and Jason, if you have any perspective, but I saw your eyes light up there, Kyle, so I'll let you go first.
Jason, if you don't mind, I'll start and then you can cabbage on. But, we are huge fans of modeling. And again, I've talked about these core and common models that they're just appropriate for any connected device. Things like device health, device information, what's going on with the backhaul. That's really not part of your use case. That's just what's the device doing. And we normalize at the device whenever we can, Dan. So the device comes up into our platform normalized because those models are enforced in firmware. We have standard firmware components to help that, et cetera. I think it's been a big, learning or passion for us. And then you take the same thing and you apply it to the application side. So how do you model the application? So maybe simple things like I can imagine in Gojo's use case, dispense count. Well, across your dispensers, call it the same thing via a model and force it in firmware. And then you've kind of got this data normalization at the source. Now there's brownfield, that's the reality of life. We've also put things in our architecture to be able to normalize that at the point of ingestion, but it's absolutely true. You can drive yourself crazy with, the same kind of domain concept called slightly different things, and you really create some brain damage for yourself. So we would say apply modeling, and if you can't do that early in the ingestion cycle, kind of take care of that transfer or transformation if you can. That's what we've experienced. Jason, I don't know if you experienced that in even all the different models, if you kind of like, man, we should have called it the same thing and we didn't, but I don't know what you would say to that question.
Yeah, well, what I would add to that is take the time, and from a modeling perspective, take the time as you're in that ideation phase, you're creating that first version, to really try to imagine what versions 2, 3, and 4 are. We spend a lot of time on the SmartLink team between the software side and our engineering side, really thinking about, man, what might these dispensers do in the future? And let's build that kind of semantic model now, even though we don't need all that or can't even store all that data yet. Let's think about what we think we'll want to do 5 years from now. And fortunately, we got a lot right by doing that. Not everything, but we got a lot right by really trying to plan for the future.
Like it. No, well, thanks, gentlemen. All right, we have a couple more, and then we'll kind of flip back to close things out. But and this actually will kind of round us out. At least just a couple questions. But our audience is kind of likely at different phases of their IoT journey. Starting, they're sketching stuff out, they're in a boardroom deciding, or they might have something that's in flight or kind of in the field. When you think of, I'll start with you, Jason. When you think of that ongoing solution management, what do you? It's going to be a hard one, but what's like one of the critical things or elements that are basically critical to success as you start to scale?
I think that the big thing is to just make sure that through, again, that the information that Kyle mentioned, that data, the information about the system, not the information that's delivering the use case. Think about your team, think about, your business and how you're going to have to maintain this, because customers can come and go. Ideally, they don't go, but they can come and go. You will always have responsibility for the system as long as it's out in the world. So it's really easy, I think, as technologists, a lot of time to sort of short ourselves, the cobbler's kids in the shoes parable, right? But you have to really fight the urge to do that, because it will cost you much more in the long run than it will in the short run, even though it doesn't seem like it at the time.
Yeah, fair enough. It's easy, especially when you're an enterprise business or you're trying to grow a solution. It's really easy to build for someone else, but you got to kind of keep the core of what you think you can grow. All right, Kyle, do I need to rephrase it or rethink it, or have you been thinking?
No, I'm good. I'm good, Dan.
Okay, go ahead, buddy. Yeah, I think and Kyle, just kind of back to you. As we think about clients being at different phases of that IoT journey, what do you feel like is the most critical part of solution management, or where should people beside, Jason had kind of had his answer. Where do you feel like people should have that critical part of success?
I'd agree with Jason. You always are going to have responsibility for the solution, and some of those things that are not associated with the use case become critical for you to maintain the fleet. Automate as much as possible. You'll notice in that grid, that matrix, down at the sustaining level where we said, hey, you really can't avoid these things. The bullet of DevOps was there in all three categories. And it's such an often overlooked critical component. As you scale, if you do not have things automated, you are going to create tremendous pain for yourself. So those are just some of the thoughts from my seat, where I think some of the critical things to pay attention to. And I also love the fact, Jason, you mentioned, hey, we thought critically about modeling early on in that phase of what will we need further out, and it paid dividends. I mean, that's so encouraging to hear.
Yeah, I love it. All right, well, let's thank you guys, and Jason, thanks for playing along with the pepper treatment that we kind of gave you there. As we sort of look to just kind of wrap things up, I'm gonna get my screen share back rolling. But this has been super great. We have actually quite a few questions that are still in the Q&A. If you dropped one in the Q&A and we didn't get to it, no worries. Please reach out. We would love to kind of share some more. some more things. And, you know, as I look at the kind of the takeaways or focuses here, hold on, I'll get us back into screen share mode. Our marketing team and tech team would probably have a heyday with me here, but hopefully you guys can see this now. So, you know, one of the three, you know, kind of the three takeaways. So following the right IoT solution journey does represent a key foundational step. We've studied this for a long time, and just it's easy to skip steps or to have the business team want you to get to production right away. And it's like, nope, follow the steps to really get you there. We always talk about connected solutions. The proper and successful ones do require some care and feeding, just like kids, just like animals. You've got to feed them and keep them growing and recognize they're going to get in trouble sometimes. And there's areas you have to reprimand them, but handling it that way. And then having the right internal blend. You know, Jason, you talked to this, Kyle, we live this every day, but incompetency is paramount. You know, you don't have to know everything, just like in life, but you've got to be able to bring the right people to the table. So those are the takeaways I kind of had been building as we looked here. Just a friendly reminder, we've got some more content coming up. We have innovation as a secret sauce, the key ingredients for IoT success with Alan Kleinerman from Kraft Heinz, an exciting project we have going with them on the Heinz Remix. And then we're also partnering with one of our partners, CComp. IoT is a team sport. We talked about it takes a village. Hardware is hard, but we've got to build the right ecosystem to make that happen. So that's with Terry Arbaugh, the Chief Commercial Officer over at CComp, one of the companies we work really closely with. So friendly reminder, we will send out this recording to those of you that participated to take apart. But Kyle, Jason, you know, this is fun. I think next time we might need to bring some music and some beers. You know, you guys are good sports, and looking forward to getting the series continue to grow. So appreciate you both taking the time for the prep and playing along with us as we shared your golf scores and go-karting tricks. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, have a great day, guys.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.